Jones would have been a different movie if they introduced Nazis through like a really serious concentration camp scene. You know what I mean? Like when you talk about like tone in movies, you can have funny Nazis in thing without having to address every issue of
Very true.
Thing.
Here we are, and welcome to a amazing, already exciting episode of the Friday Night Movie Podcast, because we have returning champion Mike Roberts, director of Final Space, creator of Dallas and Robo, Juno Award-winning artist for the short film music video. I don't exactly know how to describe it, but Rumbleseat, done to the amazing music of the Sadies. Mike, welcome back.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, Mike.
It's great to have Mike back, and Mike is back this time with Becky, who had to miss that particular episode.
Because that was when I was in Copenhagen, I want to say.
You were hanging out with some. You were doing your own non-disclosable
hanging out
activities.
With. I mean, I can talk about it now.
Oh, okay.
Because I mean, it's available. I was actually filming something with Justin Timberlake in it. Oh. Super cool. I did not talk to him, but I was in the same room as him, mere inches from his face. But yes, that's why I was gone.
How are you doing, Beck?
Oh, I'm really great. I've been like sitting on this, waiting to tell you guys when we're done podcasting today, I'm actually going to hop in the car with cousin Vanessa. She and I are driving up to Tahoe, just the two of us, and we're going to ski tomorrow morning together and then come back. And we're leaving the kids behind with their dad. Amazing. Someone will be watching them. So I'm so excited.
Crazy.
That's amazing. That's like when mom, I want to say, maybe it's multiple times in multiple grades, would just be like, Shai, it's snowing really nice today. You're not going to school. And she'd just take me skiing.
You would do that to me too.
That's a solid choice.
Like the end of high school, she used to do that. So, except, it's like a weekend. So it's really just more like, I won't care for my child today. Bye.
You've earned it.
It's way better than missing school, I can tell you that. So,
now, what's interesting, Becky, is that Lily and I chatted before the show yesterday, and she's going to weigh in.
Before the show,
we chatted yesterday about
and the day before that. We chatted before the show.
We talk often.
Yeah, I talked to you too yesterday, Shai, just by the way.
I was in a bit of a haze, but Lily was struck by a few like secrets, like secret moments you and I have had as brother and sister. Like you kind of assume everybody knows everything. Everybody.
You do assume.
No,
that's so funny.
I never assume I know everything with what's going on with the two of you. You leave me out plenty, okay?
Although, Becky, you know so many people's secrets, so I feel like you know a lot of things.
Just Mike, don't ever tell me a secret. I just have too many secrets up in here, and I can't keep straight.
I go to tell me, Becky, I'm like, Becky, I was trying to tell you, don't tell anybody. She's like, please don't stop. I don't know who knows what. I can't tell anybody anything. Anyway,
I wish I had that self-control. I can't tell people not.
Oh, I know. I worked in the industry where need to know is a real thing, and I firmly believe in need to know. You don't want to know anything that is not for your ears. You cannot win by that.
See, I live in a non-important information zone, an orbit of things that I don't need. No one cares about.
Same with me.
So what's the secret?
Anyway, did you get to the point where you think that three sieves are pretty close? You know everything about everybody. And Shai, it was like catching Found Money TV when we talk about when you find an episode of your favorite show that you had never seen. It was like finding an episode of the three of our show, and I was like, I don't know that episode. What happened? And Shai told me that the night before his wedding to his wife, he and Becky had a sleepover together, just the two of them. Before he got married.
Yeah, in the hotel. And we watched Kung Fu movies.
And they watched Kung Fu movies. Just the two of them. Talk about leaving somebody out. I was shocked.
Yeah.
I
don't remember saying I wasn't going to go with you. I'm sure I was invited. But I my boyfriend was there with me, and it was like the first big family event that he met everybody at. And it was a big deal that he came to this wedding. So I'm sure, like Shai said, I was preoccupied with that and didn't join in. But I can't believe that story.
Yeah, we watched 1980s Shaw Brothers kung fu movies together and
That's
like ate
awesome.
snacks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's really cute.
It's pretty awesome.
So there you go. An unreleased episode, origin story gets released right here. Lily, do you have another story?
So, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to bore you guys, but something really funny happened to me today.
Another cockroach falling off of someone's face in the middle of a meeting? No?
No.
Oh, I heard that story.
No. I think
Story.
yeah, that was a gem. No, but my kid sleeps in a crib still. I'm trying to keep that going for as long as possible, and he sleeps in a sleep sack, which is kind of safety to make sure he won't like leave the crib because his legs are in like a sleeping bag, right? And so I put him down for his nap, and I went into my office, which is a bit removed from his bedroom, with a monitor. And I closed my office door because I had to do a bunch of work, and he was sleeping, all quiet on the monitor. And I'm just like, my husband's at work, so this is today. He was doing a course, he's at work. So I'm, in the apartment, like all quiet, doing my work, don't hear anything but the little music on the monitor. And there's a knock at my office door. And I literally was like, oh my God, so many things went through my head. First, there's a robber in the house. He's so polite. That's weird. Jose came home early. Why would he knock at the door? But I didn't have time to say, come in. The door just opened, and a tiny 2-year-old in a sleep sack walks right into my office and goes, can I come in? And I go, I was like, first of all, thank you so much for knocking. That was really, really polite of you. I appreciate that. Second, what are you doing here? How did you get out? What happened? And he just goes, I'm not going to sleep. Literally his answer. I'm not sleeping. I was like, I guess I can't argue there. It was insane. It's surreal.
It's very adorable.
Transition to person. That's what that is. You know, when they surprise you with humanness.
Yes.
Like, hey, what's up?
Exactly. 100%.
Lily was hoping to keep him in that sleep sack till he was like 9.
For sure.
Well, our son only started getting out of bed on his own like last year, and he's 7. He always had to like get permission. He wouldn't leave the bed without.
Wow.
Oh my
He's
God.
never left the bed without.
That is an extremely polite young man.
He is an extremely polite young man. There's no question
Because
about
you're
it.
Canadian.
The progeny of 2
But he's not.
Canadians.
He was born in New York. He should be like yelling at people.
True.
Yeah, but he's got that Canadian, that like maple syrup blood.
We do. Like, we're on him for politeness. But I love. Sorry.
No. We're Americans raised in Canada, so our Canadianness is transplanted.
It's so funny. Like, you hear it the other way so often. You don't see that many Americans raised in Canada.
It made our experience unique.
Well, that's I think why so many Canadians get in TV, because we make like a parody of society. You know, like Canada's like. Well, because I remember, like I always think about like growing up liking the Dukes of Hazzard with no baggage of the Confederacy. You know,
I
that's
understand.
right. And then, like someone at like 20 was like, you know what that awesome graphic design on the roof is, right? I'm like, I love it. I don't know what it is. It's got a flag. I don't know. You got an X flag and you got the regular flag, and then you're like, oh, never talk about it again.
That is
I was earlier today. My friend Ash, who I'm on the Gold Nerds podcast with, we're trying to explain to our other co-host Lons the polka dot door, and how the polka dot door, if you really want to understand a kid who grew up in Canada, you need to understand a children's show whereby the puppets were just still stuffed animals and the actors just whispered the voices when they were off.
It's like,
I'm Humpty and Dumpty, Marigold.
That's just people. That's the thing. Like, that's not even doing TV. Like, that's just what people do. Like, a TV is supposed to like do something extra. You know what I mean?
It's like what you do in your living room with your kids.
Yeah, like I could just turn around and have the polka dot door happen over on the couch. Like, what do I need TV for? No, but that's another thing too. Is how important is the metaphor of pokeroo? It could make a joke. You're in a room full of people, and someone disappears and comes back, and they missed like Clark Kent, and you can't call them pokeroo.
Oh no, not
Americans call it snuffleupagus.
But Snuffleupagus never was like You never thought
No.
Snuffleupagus was like a dude.
No,
Right.
that's true, that's true.
Snuffleupagus is just an imaginary friend.
So
Yeah.
are we
He's
saying
not
that
in
Pokeroo is
all-
the Canadian Superman?
But they have the same dynamic of Secret Identity because
I
it's
will
the
say-
other host goes and has to
I will
change
say I
costumes.
never made that connection until I was way older, and someone told me, it was like, yeah, it's the other host. And I was like, no, they got someone who plays the Pokeroo. The other host just
sure.
is.
I may be
always-
finding out right
No.
now.
You know, where were you the whole time? They're like, I don't know. Like it was like a weird little. It's like they leaned into it a little bit, and when it was just strictly budgetary.
Yeah.
Get some
All
of
they
that.
had was that guy Dennis and whoever else.
Yeah, it's funny because TV Ontario is like that is desperation as a network for how you make a show with so little money, but it actually leads to some cool stuff, right? Like Polka Dot Door is like panic spend. Like we have $7. How much TV can we make? We can do one door, one costume, and whatever stuffed animals we've got. And then it's like a TV show for the generation.
I saw a great meme the other day that was, we're going deeply Canadian today. That was, it's the top of it says, so the Avengers thinks it was the most ambitious crossover in history, and Canada answers, and it shows a picture of Fred Penner and Mr. Dress Up together. Because I guess
That's
they did
so Canadian.
they did a crossover episode once.
That's amazing. I saw Mr. Dress Up in the pool with his family at Horseshoe Valley Resort when I was like 8, and it like messed with me. I was like, Ernie Coombs. Is it Ernie Coombs? Is that his name?
I don't know. Mr. Dress Up.
God, I mean, he's just Mr. Dress Up to me.
Lily's got like a race car seat.
Oh, yeah.
That's just because everyone in our family has a
I do-
terrible
you know
back.
what?
All of us
I
have
bought-
chairs.
I bought a gaming chair,
All right.
like for professional gamers. You can see it.
I
I'll
saw
post a
one of those
picture of it.
advertised, and I just wanted it because it looked like a car seat. It looked like a race car.
So
You know
this
what?
is
I was
actually
like, those people sit for a long time. Why can't I have one?
this is a great segue because Mike, we want to ask you about stuff you've been working on. Everyone should follow you on Instagram, the Mike Roberts. And when you did your top 9 of the year,
Oh yeah.
your rigging, which I would love for you to explain exactly what it is, but your rigging was a huge hit. But you also do these awesome like race car action scenes that take like a famous car from history, not the Dukes of Hazzard car, not the General Lee, but Kit.
I've done a couple.
Kit is often what you've used.
Yeah.
So those got tons and tons and tons of views. Tell us a little bit about the rigging and what exactly that is, because there's a Bruce Lee one that's so cool. There's this great one where you have Hellboy singing a Leonard Cohen song. Like, that's some of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Well, it's like I started out as an animator, and then like first week on the job was like, I don't want to be an animator. That was like I worked at a place called Core Digital Pictures in Toronto, and it was owned. It's funny to say because it was owned by William Shatner. I feel like that's a great sort of little footnote.
That's random.
And I was like, I was animating on a show called Angela Anaconda. I don't know if anyone ever see that.
Never heard of it.
Anyway.
I thought you were going to say Reboot.
No, that was
I loved that
Reboot.
show.
Is that also Canadian?
Reboot was good.
That was Canadian.
Yeah. It was like made in Vancouver.
It's a huge deal.
It was like really groundbreaking and weird and better than it should
I
have been.
remember flipping out.
Yeah.
Well, what a great concept. He's got to like protect the systems from any incoming games. Like it's like such a great anyway. But yeah, so I basically was like, I chose the wrong career. What have I done? You know, and then got into storyboarding and everything like that. But I always found out like it always was handy to be able to animate. So I'm always kind of trying to figure out the best way, because on a show, like 90% of my job is working on story, doing storyboards, and then, you know, maybe managing edits. So there's no actual animation if I don't want to. I can stand back as much as I want. So I decided to kind of like, that was what it was. So with Rumbleseat, so when it came time to make my short film, I realized that all those years of being lazy about animation was kind of coming back to haunt me. So I was using that kind of like puppet technique. And I always felt like
by the way, haunting and super cool in Rumbleseat. I mean, the way you use the puppet technique, right, is wild in Rumbleseat.
Well, I got like a lot of pushback going at, like, it's funny. I will say, like, I should have saved the like $5,000 on festivals and just put it on Vimeo, because that's the only thing that ever mattered. Like the festivals didn't do a thing. Like I would like win a festival and I got like a piece of paper and all this kind of stuff, and it was great. It was fun, but it kind of felt like festivals felt like its own. It was like a circular logic. It was like festival. They were like making content for festivals. You know, like did you ever see that Hitchhiker's Guide joke where it's like the shoe event horizon, where there's just too many shoe stores and like they destroy the economy because all they're doing is making shoes and then subsidizing making more shoes. That's what like that's what festivals felt like. Anyway, so then, but with that film, like it wouldn't get into certain festivals because it wasn't animated, you know, air quote animated, because it was like puppet and whatever. And that was back when none of that stuff was being done in a way that was super well respected, unless you really hit it well. So it would get like really snobby rejection letters from animation festivals. They're like, well, if it had any animation in it, we would love to have it in the festival. And then, anyway, so I felt like maybe that kind of like was like the pin in my side. And then I found this program called Moho that lets you essentially use 2D like 3D, which is, if you have much exposure to 3D, you're kind of building. 3D is like you're molding a sculpture, and then you mold it into another shape that you want it to be, like a different mouth position, a different eyebrow position, and then you morph it from that pose to the next. Like it kind of, you sort of tell it to go from here to there. Is that clear at all?
Yeah. So the computer program kind of does the work in between those two stages.
Yeah, so it's like it's like if you were molding it out of clay, you'd make like an O mouth, and then you'd make like an E mouth, and then the computer goes, here's the stages in between. And then, you know, the really good people work on each little in between phase. You could have thousands of these sort of morph targets. Anyway, so that program does that with 2D, which I found really exciting. So then it became like a little hobby. So it's like, I feel like I make, you know, like when you hear like someone who's like a lawyer makes bird cages, it's like, or bird houses. It's like, well, that.
Actually, our dad, who's like a businessman, is like this insane woodworker, and he built like the Ewok palace of birdhouses outside of our house once.
So that's what my Instagram is. My Instagram is essentially how I kind of like, I feel like still drawings are kind of like a little too boring. You know, so I like try to like bring some life to them. So it's this weird kind of, I guess, just like a hobby.
Where I look at your Instagram and be like, this is some serious professional animation.
But I don't think I've ever gotten paid for it. You know, like that's. I mean, I've gotten whatever, but like it's funny to think. My secret plan is one day someone would be like, we need to make this show, but it's got to be $100,000 an episode cheaper, and I'm like, have I got a way to do that?
All right.
That's cool. So is Moho something normal people can use? Like, yeah, it's like an app, or is it an iPad thing, or is it?
No, it's like I don't know. It's like Photoshop or Toon Boom or it's like Flash. You know, Flash.
Sure.
It's like Flash. The main thing that Moho's got going against it is it's such a easy barrier for entry that you think it has a certain style that you see. So like whenever you look up examples, you're like, oh, that's what that program does, rather than when you see, like, there's this company called Cartoon Saloon that does lots of really amazing animation in Moho. You just can't tell. So you only kind of they could call it like a Moho look, where it looks like people who aren't quite sure how to interpret the tools in a way that brings it up to that next level. This is all very inside baseball, boring stuff.
Yeah, but it is kind of like Photoshop. You can kind of tell when somebody's using Photoshop or something's been Photoshopped, and it's just clearly the basics.
Right, like
and
the difference between Lily. There's a difference between Lily and me on Photoshop. Like me, I'm often putting someone's head into some sort of fun mashup.
That's the only way. And you can like
so there
see
might be
the outline
you to me, and then me to
blending.
like, you know, the next guy. Like there's a lot of stages, but I definitely see what you
guy
mean.
above you, Lily. It's like
there's
whoever's the best, and then Lily.
Yeah, right.
And then way at the bottom.
Well, you know, like in Adobe Illustrator, it's like circle, pill shape, 2 colors, gradient, and then there's the people. It's like the Mona Lisa in Illustrator. You know what I mean? It's all the same. That's basically like that's any tool, right? You just the people who try to figure out how to use it. I just like that it lets me do a lot quickly, so that I can enable this weird little OCD thing I did.
And how'd you come up with the idea of having Hellboy sing a Leonard Cohen song?
Have
you guys seen this, Lily and Becky? It's so cool. It looks
I'm an avid follower.
It like all I'm imagining is Ron Perlman dressed as Hellboy singing Leonard Cohen.
Well, I made that rig just because essentially there's this constant debate about whether you can make animation styles look like the creator style. So all these comic book artists that everyone loves, how can you actually make that a show?
Like a McFarlane,
yeah, like if someone's like, oh, we want to make Todd McFarlane Spider-Man as a cartoon, there's not really that many ways to do that without spending bajillions of dollars. So that's what I like about this program is you can sort of lock the style in. So it was more like a dare, to be honest. And then after that tweet went crazy, somebody said, hey, you should make him singing something. Like, I think maybe they even suggested the song. I'll check it out.
Explain what a rig is
Oh, yes.
So like with animation, you either draw every frame, right? I think most people know about that. Like it's just like 24 frames or 12 frames or whatever frames a second. With a rig, you're essentially drawing one drawing in and then attaching like handles and the ability to move it around. So instead of drawing, I'm trying to think of the most concise way to explain it.
So it's like a puppet, like you're building a skeleton for a puppet?
It's a skeleton for a puppet. That's a much better way to explain it. So so instead of having to draw like 50 people or 50 drawings to make someone say hello, you draw the head and the body and then draw one mouth and then morph the mouth.
Like an animatronic.
It's animatronic. It essentially looks like how those Disneyland machines look. It's like a skeleton and it kind of moves around. And you have like a spine. It's like, you ever see the 3D rigs and you see them pulling the handles around and the mouth's going big and small and the eyes open and close? It's essentially that. It's so much simpler than it sounds. It's literally just, it's like how they make South Park where they put like pieces of paper on and they shoot down on a flat plane. It's just that, but super high tech.
That's really cool.
I don't feel like I explained it very well.
So if we could just tease out one of your shows, because things will come up at different times, but Final Space on TBS, which you directed, your exact title of that is
supervising director.
So you were kind of like the overarching director of that whole look of that show and the story and the execution of the story, right?
Well, we got to give a credit to the art director Devo too. Like it's the stuff that I was more in charge of is like how cinematic it felt in camera and tone and that kind of stuff.
Well, it does feel cinematic. It's like you had said when we talked before, it's a space opera, and Becky's husband Vlad, who's always gives me little coaching on my scribbly little animations, always talks to me about making a character act, right? Like that the facial expressions, the movement, and one of the things that I love about Final Space is not just that it's funny, it's got a tremendous sense of humor, but it's got tremendous heart, it's got tremendous acting moments and drama. And one of the moments in drama is the death of spoiler alert for anyone, everyone should watch this show, but the death of Avocado. Who is this grizzled, I don't know if it's bounty hunter type or a bounty hunter type who ends up befriending our main character, and then in the end, the main character has to be the shepherd of Avocado's little kid. Little Cato. And that, but here is you took like a Chewbacca-like character and you had to kill him off, and it had to have stakes. It had to be significant. How do you, as a supervising director, working with that whole team, bring in the drama to something that someone flipping on the television, like someone going to see this, does not going to see, like if I'm going to see Coco, I know there's going to be drama. There's an expectation there. If I'm on TBS and I'm watching an animated movie with a tiny little glowy space thing, I'm expecting it to be kind of funny. But here you are bringing drama into this. How do you pull all that together?
Well, one of the reasons that I took that job, or one of the reasons I wanted to take that job, was because David and Olin, the showrunner and creator, they basically sort of said, we want to make a primetime cartoon, but like Christopher Nolan doing a primetime cartoon. And so, that's obviously so cool. A huge,
no
I'm
pressure.
Not saying we hit it, but no, but I mean, it was like as a challenge, it was an interesting one. So, and to me, what you're asking is like, if you want the audience to be ready for some drama, you just have to treat the whole thing a little bit more, I think, cinematically and seriously than your usual cartoon. So like, BoJack was something else I worked on, was like super, it leaned on the sitcom tropes to then trick you into a really amazing sort of dark, deep exploration into like depression and all this kind of stuff. So that was using the style of the show to kind of take you in one direction. It's like, hey, we're just having fun here. I caught you, you know. And then Final Space is the other way, where it was we were trying to make sure that there was enough cinematic storytelling throughout, so that when we wanted to introduce like a slow motion musical montage, like the death of Avocado, that episode was directed by Ben Bajelajak, by the way, and he's the season 2 supervising director. We were ready for it because we didn't have to tell the audience, like, you can't switch gears from The Simpsons to The Simpsons doing Chinatown unless that's the gag, but it's not a seamless transition. It has to like hit a wall, you do Chinatown, you come back out of it. So we had to be ready so that the show felt like that was like that the whole time. So we were, you know, we were really big on trying to treat the animatic process how they do the feature. And I don't know if you know the difference usually between TV and movie story time is that
the only person who would be Becky in this whole group.
Well, then I'll
and barely.
Well, then Becky might be a good. You tell me if I'm getting too inside on this stuff, but like, I mean, in a boring sense, but essentially when you make TV, usually you have a script that's super tight, and you just put what's on the script, you make it, and you hit every note, and they almost like edited together the boards based on the jokes. So it's just like highlight the joke, highlight the joke, highlight the joke, highlight the joke. So on Final Space, it was really great because we got the opportunity to treat the story department like a feature, which is, let's try this sequence and go through and see if it works. And then massage that a little and massage that a little. So does it feel warm? Because you can't plan to make something emotional and warm. You have to kind of know that's the goal and then chip away at it.
So does that mean that you guys had more time in the story phase of production than you would in a typical TV show?
No, the consolation was to go faster. So the way that we did it was we had the directors, and this happens sometimes. I don't make it sound like it's some amazing new process, but the directors thumbed the whole episode really fast. And then the idea was that meant they had a real clear idea of the show already in their head. Because some shows will like the director will have an idea and then hands chunks out to storyboard artists. Mm-hmm. And then each storyboard artist does a few minutes, you know? But what you get is sometimes very disjointed animatic. And that's why the style sometimes gets so tight, because they're like, if we keep the style so consistent, then you don't have to worry about storyboard artists interpreting it differently. So this was like the director interprets it, and then the board artist can really sing on their camera and their acting. And that basically was how we did it. So we just essentially tried to do it twice as quickly, so we had twice as much time. So and then, by the way, I have to give credit. We had Jamfield, the Toronto studio or Ottawa studio, who were so good. And so we were able to keep the boards a little bit more loose, a little bit more fluid, and then not spend the time tightening it up to this unbelievable degree, so that Final Space could kind of let their animators fill in some of those blanks too. So essentially, we just took out the polish phase, you know.
All right.
I also think with rigging, because again, back to rigging, with rigging animation, it's sometimes wasted effort to go too clean. I'm sure a lot of people will roll their eyes at me, but
or a lot of people might agree with you.
Yeah, I love expressive work.
That's just like a silly part of it. I mean, I'm not going to speak for my husband, but he whenever he has to polish stuff, he kind of just like rolls his eyes a bit, and he's like, okay.
He works in CG too. It's like these like world-class sculptors are like, oh, thank you. You know what I mean? Like, it's handled. So no, I think like acting and expression. I've never seen. I see that the loose storyboard artists get better performances. You know, they like make people draw cooler keyframes.
I think Vlad would definitely agree with you. Whenever he has to do that kind of polishing, usually he's like, oh, it's probably just want something for the art book. Like they make art books at the end of every film. They just need content for the art book. No.
Well, that's why I thought I saw the Spiderverse storyboards, and they were super loose, and I was pretty impressed about that. They were like crazy loose. I was, and by the way, I'm in. That's not a criticism. Like, I thought it was great. I thought they were.
I'm sorry. When did you see those storyboards?
They were just people. I don't know. I follow every hashtag about something I like.
So it'll be like storyboard artists from it.
Yeah, just happened upon. Yeah.
So it wasn't like Lord and Miller had you over their house to look at storyboards.
No, but I did get to see. Wait, can I say this? I've seen all.
My answer is yes. Storyboard. I always just say yes. You can say anything.
I have I have this awesome, generous producer friend who always invites me to the kind of like test screenings when it's kind
Oh,
of
that's so
20%
cool.
and the rest boards. So I take my son. My son's hilarious with his film critique. He's the best. Like I just bring him so he can like ask his questions at things. Like, do you think that like the character's motivations are like you can really see him practicing his like.
Whoa.
What is he? He's the kid who goes like, oh, I'm trapped in a. What did he say the other day? I'm trapped in an ocean of incompetence. And I was like, oh no, that I'm swept up in the ocean. And I was like, okay, what's incompetence? He's like, I don't know. What's swept up? He's like, I don't know. You know what I mean?
Ask
This is
permission
like,
to leave his bed. This sounds like the best kid ever.
So
good.
this is a good set. This is a good connection to then. Like one key question we wanted to ask you, which we just came off posting our holiday episode. We asked people their top 5 films of the year. We have an actual feature. We have a filmmaker here with us here, other than Becky, who is a filmmaker, but someone.
Don't use that term with me.
Becky
I'm a
makes-
producer.
Becky makes documentaries, though. You make stories.
Sure. I make nonfiction content.
But
So-
that's huge.
So,
It is
still need a
huge. It
story.
is huge.
your
still need to-
top. What were your top 5 films of the year? And was one of them Spider-Man Into the Spiderverse?
Can we do it the other way where because here's my whole problem is like everyone's like, what's your top 5 movies? And then they say, I'm like, that was this year? That was this
Exactly.
year?
Our
Okay,
whole
so-
holiday
so
episode that
the
we just
ones that
posted
were-
yesterday is all about the fact that none of us remember any of the movies this year except what we saw this past month.
But we all, but
Favorite?
the
Sorry.
favorite?
Yeah, the movie The Favorite? That's the last one I saw that I loved.
That is
I have
one that
never
I
been to see
said
that.
that I wanted to see that I would love, and Shai gave me a lot of crap.
But
Right.
no,
Why?
but
Just
really, it
seems
was
very
like
Downtown Abbey
Black
to me.
Klansman was at the
What's
top
that?
of our list. Spider-Verse was at the top of everyone's list.
Wait,
and
what was
after
the
that,
first
it
one you
was-
said? Sorry.
Black Klansman.
Oh, yeah, that was good too. Yeah, I love Spike Lee.
Yeah.
So
Wait, that's
yeah,
fine.
the top ones. That's the consistent top ones in our family were
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Bohemian Rhapsody, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Black Klansman,
Yeah.
and Black Panther, and then all of us had a 5th one. Mine was Super Troopers 2.
Yeah, my list included Free Solo and American Animals. That was on my list. And Lily's
Love
had
Simon.
and Love Simon, and Lily had Tag, and
I love Tag.
I
But-
don't know.
But the 4 that I
And
just
the
mentioned to
favorite, but I
you
haven't seen it
were-
yet.
The 4 that
I
I
said it
mentioned
was
to
gonna
you
be one.
were, I would say Black
Yeah, but
Klansman,
Black
Black Panther, and Spider-Man were like the big
Yeah.
winners in our family.
All right.
Did you
all
make
right.
a face about Bohemian Rhapsody like you didn't like it or you didn't see it?
No, I didn't see it. I didn't
Oh,
see
okay.
it.
You should go
Well, I was trying to think of what I make. You said something that I might make a face to. What was the one? Oh. Did you say Solo, Becky?
No,
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 free,
Free
solo.
Solo.
This is
all
happens
the
in our
time.
family every time we sit down for a meal.
not Solo. Shai's always like, so you saw Solo for free? I'm like, no. It's a movie called Free Solo. It's a documentary about a rock climber.
But I would
That's
say,
all.
Oh, that
if you want to
sounds
touch a
great.
sensitive nerve in our family, debate whether or
Oh.
not. My wife has banned us from debating the movie Solo at this point.
Oh no, why?
Because
It's
our
such a
parents
good
Not like
movie.
you know how they say no, just listen, at like Thanksgiving dinners and Christmas dinners and stuff like that,
Yeah.
they recommend not talking politics with your family
Okay.
because somebody could like lose an eye or stop speaking to each other. In our family, you have to you have to tread very lightly on like certain Baobun short films or about certain Star Wars movies. You got to be real careful which direction you take. So
So funny.
we're banned from talking about the Han Solo movie.
Because
Yeah,
our
yeah.
parents
Free Solo
loved it,
rock
and
climbing.
our parents loved it. They begged us to see it. We made a whole night out of it. We watched it in this fancy screening room on our
It was a
vacation.
terrible screening room.
But it was
You couldn't
fancy.
even see the screen.
It doesn't
It
matter.
was bad.
Well,
The
once
point
you see a movie
is-
at Pixar, Becky, everything's about
The point is that I would say, I mean, I didn't want to like it, and I didn't like it, and I put it this way, I liked it. I thought it was fine fan fiction, but like my parents had built it up and they had made it sound like it was really, really good, and the only thing I liked was Darth Maul's appearance at the end.
But
Anyways,
sometimes-
and then-
sometimes your parents want to like set you up. Like they're like, "Oh, I finally got ahead of something that my kids would like,"
Yeah,
and then they show it to you, and you're like,
100%.
"What the hell?" Is this?
And then I think, I don't know about for Lily, but for myself, I'm a little bit like, ugh, it's like I don't want to take Shai's side too much because then it'll upset my parents, and I don't want to
That's why I haven't seen
my
the Baobun
parents' side
one.
too much
I don't wanna
because
get
it's upset
involved.
is
Shai, and I really
politics.
just don't want anyone to talk to me about it. Like just
Yeah, and then
everyone.
and every time I tried to talk about it, my wife would be like, "Nope, sorry, never want to hear about this movie ever again. I'm not even going to tell you if I liked it."
See, because I don't like talking about movies like that sometimes because I often find that when people bump on a movie that isn't very good, they bump on it and then go on some terrible rant about it. So, like, the internet took what was wrong with, say, like, The Last Jedi and turned it into, like, an anti-feminism, anti-bullshit, anti-politics thing when you're like, no. You bumped on it and you are just a misogynist, for example. You know what I'm saying? Like, so they take, like, they take the bump and then run with whatever their political thing is. And I'm like, no, they just broke character. It's pretty simple.
It's just not a great movie.
Treason to billions of fans.
So in fairness to Solo, I loved Alden Ehrenstein or whatever his name was. I thought he was fine. Like I
wasn't convinced.
I enjoyed him in it. I don't think that role should have been recast. I don't think that movie should have been made. Considering that I have
no problem with it being.
There are certain things where I've learned that
they should just CGI Harrison Ford's face. He's the only Han Solo. Just give him a little makeup. Put a backpack on him. I'll believe he's 16.
I would propose this. I'd rather see Mike make a great animated story that's as good as Spiderverse than see them try to sort of cash in on Han Solo because people think Han Solo is cool.
That's thinking outside the box. I like that.
My life's like you can mark this down if you care or whatever, that I'll say I want to make an animated Superman and an animated Fantastic Four for those exact reasons. Great. So everyone's like, "Greenlit, good Superman," and you're like, "You absolutely can. You just can also make bad ones." So because Solo to me is like, how I knew that movie wasn't going to be good, because in the original trailer he goes, "All I've ever wanted to be was a pilot, and I want to be the best pilot," and you're like, "No, that's not Han Solo at all. Han Solo almost resents that piloting is the thing he's good at. He's fell into his life. If he isn't like, I've never known what I wanted, that's the character.
Maybe I'll be a pilot. Maybe I won't."
And the movie then goes on to skip everything that would have been the journey to him becoming a good pilot. So he steals a car, and then suddenly you have to believe he's a good pilot.
He's the best pilot in the galaxy. I knew the movie was going to be bad when he said that 3 times in the fight. The trailer.
I was like, that scene where he's like, "What's your name?" He's like, "Well, I've always been on my own." He's like, and then they call him so like, he's like, "Hey, what's your name, son?" He's like, "Oh, sorry, I wasn't listening. Have my thumb up my butt." "All right, hand thumb up your butt." It's like what he said in that moment. What's going to be his name forever is the weirdest thing ever.
Well, it's like when they,
it's lazy.
Wait, who's
it's lazy
raised,
story. It's lazy storytelling. It's
like
lazy
Last
writing.
Jedi. Who's raised parentage? Like, where is she from? How does she get to be such a badass Jedi? Nobody. She's a nobody.
It's lazy.
Can I give you my pitch for the opening when Luke Skywalker got the lightsaber in Last Jedi? Speaking of that, he should. If he looked, he grabs.
He should have killed that weird milking alien.
That's his
he should have killed Rey, cut her head off. No, I'm just joking. It was I get on this weird anti feminist rant of all of a sudden who's this Mike guy? Just because there's so much misogyny around that whole story. But imagine in the whatever. First of all, I will say that I joke that that's the most sexist movie they've made so far because they denied a woman her Jedi training montage. There's a Jedi.
I actually, so here I'll tease that out further and I'll say, I believe that in their effort to make her no one, they stripped a character that I was so interesting.
Yeah.
And in the end, I'm like, what? So she's just got superpowers? She's just a superhero?
That's not really how it works. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to know your pitch.
So
the lightsaber.
And he looks at it for a few seconds, right? And he looks at her and he goes, "Where were you?" And she's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Where were you?" And he's like,
I'm already so much more enthralled than when I was watching the movie.
I have been calling you in your head since you were a kid. You heard my voice.
I have full body chills.
And then he goes, and she's like, "What? Well, why didn't you? I don't know how this is the clunky version, but why didn't you come and get me?" He's like, "If I left this island, I knew that I was on the path to making Kylo Ren the most powerful Sith Lord. If I left here, it would have created that. The only way was to bring you here, and you were too weak to get here before I had to watch my friend die through your eyes," which is the Han Solo.
I have full body chills.
Wow.
And then
I hope everyone's listening to this.
Then he takes the lightsaber, throws it into the water. He goes, "You're going to have to get that back. Let's get to work."
Ah.
You start the hardest Kill Bill 2, top of the mountain.
Oh my
Little
god.
Karate Kid in there. Loving it.
Whatever, and it should have been like, because here's the other thing about that movie. It's like, you want to hear my pitch for the intro? Is this bad? Like, are we off on too much?
No,
of a
this
Doesn't
is
matter.
I mean,
this is the
whatever.
official mic drop of the Last Jedi. Actually, you doing
this is therapy for Shai. You're saving him hundreds and hundreds of dollars.
Okay, well, check this out then.
Go
So I always like to, by the way, my criticism, I've always heard, like, when you see those online essays and then someone goes, here's what I would have done, then they just redo it. You can't do that. Like, you have to kind of pretend to work within the confines of, because you don't know what the must-dos were, right? Like, that's what I was like. I'll tell you a funny thing about what I think about Spider-Verse, because I think the Spider-Verse was a must-do from the studio because the story works without the Spider-Verse. And it actually, it just as well.
I agree with you, and the
be a must,
the criticisms, which, like, I went to see it again for a second time in Spanish with my husband,
right.
Because they only show movies here in that language, and so and to be fair, that's his.
Miles is Latino,
right? Yeah. And look, it would have been hard for him to catch all the jokes in just hearing it in English with no subtitles, so it's fine. And like, as we're leaving the theater, I was like, oh my God, what do you think? And he was like, well, I was like, okay, I'm just full warning. We are married. And I just like, and I don't know why, but whatever you say next, I'm going to take personally. I don't know why.
No, I'll tell you, we'll get to that after. I don't want to hurt you. It won't hurt you with what
one, like, criticism was that it was like, did I need, like, all that other, the story, everything was so good. I didn't really need all that other stuff, like all those other guys.
There is one thing that I bet I could make you go, oh yeah, Aunt May Alfred.
Yeah.
I knew it. So they dug out a 100 by 100 foot underground pit.
When I saw it the second time, I noticed it.
So
I was like,
that doesn't make it a bad movie.
I just accepted that as that was this version of the Spider-Verse, right? Like, they'd already.
I wanted to see the Bruce Wayne version then. Do you see what I mean? Like, I didn't have a problem. If they went, come on, Spider-Man here lives in Wayne Manor and Aunt May is, you know what I'm saying? That I would have been 100% on board. I'm just like, how with no money, how do you dig out an underground pit and live
Queens?
Anyway, but that's overthinking. No question. Okay, so let's talk about Spider-Verse, because I want to know if I sound like a cynical jerk about Spider-Verse, because I absolutely adore it. But okay, so Spider-Verse. Last Jedi.
Right.
Poe flies in, right? And they have that stupid phone call.
Oh yeah, the FaceTime thing.
Yeah, he's like, "Hey, it's Poe Dameron, and I'm holding for."
Oh yeah, that opening scene. Yeah.
That was so bad.
But check this out. So he flies in, same setup, one ship, and they're like, "Captain, there's just one ship off the front." He's like, "Hey there, I don't know who I'm talking to right now. My name's Poe Dameron. I'm from the Rebel Alliance or whatever they're called. I just want you to know, I'm going to fly on your deck. I'm going to shoot all your guns down. I'm going to blow up your shield generator. And then after that, when you're defenseless, my bombers are going to come in. They're going to drop all your shit on and blow your whole Star Destroyer up. Just want to let you know, because I'm a badass." Then flies on the deck, kind of the same whole thing, right? And they're like, holy shit, we weren't ready for one fighter. So he calls his shots, right? And he set up this great thing where he's such an arrogant shit, and his plan's working really well. They're like, sir, we didn't plan for one ship to fly on the deck, because that's essentially what he does, right? He goes in and clears out all the guns. Mm-hmm. Then they blow that all up, and the bombers come in. And then all of a sudden, this thing happens where a couple of the bombers start blowing up. And then you realize, and then you cut to, I'm probably not describing it the best, but you cut to the bridge and you see that Princess Leia is set up, and they're like, wow, this was a risky plan, but it's working. And then all of a sudden, people burst onto the bridge of that ship with, what's his name? Benicio del Toro.
Oh, okay.
And then they go, we found a saboteur. He's been giving the codes to the whatever. Then across the thing, you start to see that another couple of ships fly in, and then the plan starts to go wrong, and then the bombing run screws up. See what I mean? So then they have you have a way that he can clear off the deck, he's amazing. He wasn't endangering all these pilots. It was a good plan. He just didn't know there was going to be a saboteur, right? Then when
you're maintaining the character's integrity.
Exactly. He is a badass who takes risks, but his risks have always worked. they're always one step ahead. He's got a plan for everything, but he couldn't account for Benicio del Toro. And the reason you do that is because then later, when they're like, we need to figure out a way to like stop the thing, they're in the jail on the ship with Benicio del Toro, and he goes, actually, I know how to help you guys if you pay me. So what I mean is like you basically make the loop of that Benicio del Toro internal in the ship. He was a saboteur. Then he's on the brig of that ship. You don't go to that stupid casino planet at all. And then
you don't? You don't? Then then what about the horse camels? How would you have those in the movie?
Because I will say like in the future, it's like we've invented everything except jerry cans. You know what I mean? Like get gas, bring gas back. Like what I don't anyway, the fuel thing. But you see what I mean? Like I would want the whole thing to have it so that you can set these characters up and have them pay off. So Benicio del Toro has been there the whole time, and he then helps them, I don't know, turn off the whole friggin' thing that tracks them or whatever it is, you know? You just these movies need to set up these characters to be singular, you know, like think of like Han Solo was Han Solo from the first second you saw him to the last thing he did in Return of the Jedi. Never broke character. Like the worst thing you say with a Star Wars movie is the timelines don't work in Empire Strikes Back. You know, like Luke is on that planet too short to learn to be a Jedi. You know, like how long were they flying to get to whatever? And these are the kinds of things. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Well, I've already liked the Mike Roberts cut of The Last Jedi more than the original.
Sure. I mean,
all right.
Like
let's get to.
Hopefully, JJ can clean this all up.
Well, let's see. I'd love to think he could. Oh, and one more thing: how did it not end on the hand thing? Grabbing the hands. Come with me. The end. That's how that movie should have ended. Kylo Ren reaches out. Rey reaches out. Their hand.
Mm-hmm. And you don't know
right.
And you don't know what's going to happen, right?
Oh,
how could it not end like that? What the hell, guys?
Oh, wow. So, all right. So, Spider-Verse. When Becky saw Spider-Verse, she saw it with a bunch of animators. And
my husband.
Oh, I thought.
No,
he had seen it at his friends saw it at Pixar.
His friends had all seen it at Pixar, and we were being encouraged to go see it by a whole bunch of animators, specifically by one animator, Trevor. That's who I spoke to.
And what you folks said, is that this was unlike anything they'd seen before.
Yeah, they were all just like, well, never seen that before. That's pretty damn exciting. So, yeah, so we went to go see it on my birthday. Sorry, do you want me to talk about? What do you want me to talk about?
No, I just wanted to know the reaction. I want to hear what Mike has to say about.
Oh, yes.
I want to hear. Just so from his world and his group of friends, everyone was like really excited about it, which is weird because it's not that they're not excited about animated films, but it's like, you know, when you're part of like the process,
I feel like it's like
And I think that you know, a lot of these guys are wonderful storytellers and writers and directors in their own right, and you know, they work on these very exciting, amazing movies, but they're like kids movies, and I think they want to
like an Iron Chef going out for dinner,
right? Like they like seeing things that are edgier, different, that push the envelope, and so to kind of have all of this enthusiasm from them, I was like, all right, you're making a pretty good case for going to see a cartoon on my birthday. So
I have to say, I probably wouldn't have gone if all of those guys didn't say we should see it. So,
but wait,
you know, so desperate to go to the movies.
And you liked it too?
I liked it.
Yeah.
I was like literally losing my mind while I was watching it. I was having so much fun. I don't remember the last time I saw a movie and I was like having fun and feeling sad that I knew it was going to end and I'd never be able to experience it again for the first time. Yeah. And so like while I was watching it, I was sad that I'm like, this is the only time I'll see it for the first time. And then since seeing it, I have been trying to go see it again, which is like a little difficult to coordinate getting out to go see it. And I like keep checking movie times to find out like how long it's going to be playing in my neighborhood because I'm like, worried it's going to go out of the theaters before I can go see it again. That's how much I liked it.
All right. No, that's good. I mean, because one of my things I liked about it selfishly is that I felt like me and Ben and a couple other people in Final Space were like banging the drum so hard that just because Final Space is going to be funny and this interesting thing doesn't mean we shouldn't try to make the compositing and the feel of the thing really high end and lots of really big kind of we took a lot of big swings on cinematic things like depth of field and lighting and rim lights and all this kind of stuff. So it's really nice to see sort of the industry that, and I feel like that is a frustration that a lot of people who work in animation feel, this kind of like, we have all this ability. Like you look at Instagram, right, and you see all these design work that they're doing for all these movies, and they're these amazing artists with all these different techniques and splash and color and all this kind of stuff, and you see the final movie and it's awesome, but it's really clean and tidy. And Spider-Verse to me was such a revelation because it felt like all the design work that you see on Instagram and all those art books happening on the screen rather than
you felt like the art book come to life.
It was the art book.
I wanted to ask you
experimentation. So wait, I have a question. No, I want to ask Mike a question. So as a director, what I couldn't wrap my brain around is how does the director or the production designer communicate to the teams which style is going to be used when? Well, like there's so many styles. Like it's not accidental. Like how do they figure that out?
Well, I'll start by saying I don't actually know, but what I would guess is that it started out as this. I would guess that they started out going, let's make a living comic book, right? And everybody agreed with whoever executive was on board for that. And then they went, okay, but what he really means or what she really means is let's go goddamn berserk. So like, because I know that they had a really, really good production designers who were drawing things, putting Letrotone in places. They were sort of taking all the tropes of comic books and instead of literally using them, it was like, well,
they were exploding them and elevating them out.
And it was even little things like okay, they could, like, if you're working on a production for 3 years and you say, hey guys, let's do classical animation frame rate in a feature, which you've seen a million times in like.
Just explain that to the public, whoever
for the record. I have explained it to you.
I understand. I understand what it is, but other people generally don't. I think you guys. I understand what it is. I just wanted to. I wrote a note to remember to ask you at that moment because it's a very cool part of the movie, and I think that people can appreciate the movie a lot more if they understand it.
Well, so the quick answer is when they started doing animation, they would do, when they figured out what frame rates were in film, it was either, I think it was 24 real early on, but 24 was this kind of bridge between economy and what your eye could see. So 24 was essentially a very sympathetic frame rate where your eye goes, I like that, it's aesthetically pleasing, but not enough frames that they have to print hundreds of thousands of feet more of film, right? Because if you go between 24 and 30 frames per second in film, you're talking about another whole reel of film. So there's an economical aspect to it, and I'm talking like way, way back. So once they kind of established that with animation, they started drawing it, they started realizing that you could get away with 12 drawings per second, which was just like an economy thing. Bambi, but even let's just for argument's sake, like Steamboat Willie, I think that they were realizing, and I don't know off the top of my head if that was on twos, but it became really quick. But yes, Bambi, for example, they became really aware that 2 drawings per 2 frames per drawing was still very aesthetically pleasing. No one was ever going to go like, oh, it's not every frame. So that became how animation was made, and then they got into essentially, and they would do ones, they call it ones, like fast action is every single frame, because sometimes it gets a little stroby. Do you ever see like in a film where they pan really, really quickly? And it almost looks like it's going click, 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 even in live action. That's because 24 frames per second sometimes breaks down, which is where you get guys like Peter Jackson like arguing for 48 frames per second, which I think looks insane. But
makes people barf.
I don't like the way it looks.
Yeah, so the classical animation frame rate is, for argument's sake, classical animation is on twos, they call it, which is 2 drawings per. It's two drawings. 2 frames per drawing. God, I'm not saying it very well. So in 24 frames, you have 12 drawings. So it's twos. Ones is 1 frame per 24. Fours is 4. Anyway, so in Spider-Verse, what they did is they leaned way into it. And they were like, let's finish the animation. Because by the way, like that's all in the computer. The computer is infinite frames, right? When they're animating him walking around, you could render it out at 60 frames per second. But they said, how would we draw this? Let's represent each frame with the equivalent classical animation frame. So when people say, "Ooh, it looks choppy and sloppy," that's the very deliberate choice to make it move properly through the space to represent classical animation.
But then they don't always use.
They don't always use. No, because like if he's going super fast, it's not a, this is what I mean. It's not a rule. It's like they can. The great thing is they can do it as much as they
want. In the movie, when you're watching it, there's some parts that just seem so overly real compared to others. And back to Beck's question of how do you think, like, or how would you have chosen, communicated? Okay, well, this scene should be twos, and let's like.
Yeah, well, that's what
one person deciding that, or is this like a committee of like 15 people?
Well, it's always a big group. Actually, it's funny. I met Peter Ramsey at he voted at the same voting place as me, and I was like, oh my god, I know you from Twitter. Anyway, but he probably thought I was a maniac. But anyway, so I think it's a, to me, those kinds of things are everyone saying a thing that represents the same idea. So if someone says, let's do it classical animation frames, right? Then someone else goes, ooh, if we're doing classical animation frames, why don't we split the RGB channels like we're looking at it with 3D glasses? Oh, okay, well, if we're going to do that, why don't we spray some of this out here to look like paint splatter? Ooh, well, this artist that we just hired does this weird thing where the eyes look a certain way. Why don't we try that? And then it becomes this snowball effect of what fits with where we're going, what completely changes the process. Well, let's do all, because I noticed sometimes the shadows on the skin would have that I don't know what they call it, letratone, I want to say, like comic book, the dots.
Yeah.
Process.
Well, I wanted to, that was another thing that I have written down that I wanted to ask you, what you thought of the Ben-Day dot throughout the entire, the comic book strip dots?
Yeah, is that what they're called?
The Ben-Day dot, yeah.
You mean just in the shading, right? In the color?
Exactly. Now, originally, they all were made of all those dots.
Yeah.
Right? And then now they don't need to obviously use that technique.
Oh, you mean
in comic books?
Yes, in comic books, not movies. Right. In comic books. No, that is a call out, a shout out to comic books. That that's not a film thing or an animation thing. It's a comic book thing. But it's also, to me, a high art thing because you know, Lichtenstein and I mean, it's the Ben-Day dot is so famous in terms of how it's been re-represented in like high art stuff, and seeing it in the movie throughout the whole movie that's a style choice that's pretty consistent in the film. Also, the crosshatch. Yeah. But all of there were crosshatches on I noticed the second time. Go see it twice just because you can then look at all the fun artsy things. Sure, yeah. And the roommate, for example, had the crosshatch, kind of like that shading as well. Yeah, I think that's what you're referring to. And it was moving as he moved, as its own separate thing. And it's very obvious, and those are serious stylistic choices.
But I think it's as easy as everyone being on the same page about trying stuff. And then, it could literally have been someone going, it would be cool. We could do a comic book, and everyone's got the Ben-Day dots on the shading. And everyone goes, whoa, that sounds really hard. And then someone makes the decision to not let it being hard stop you from doing it. So, I think all these decisions get made by people throwing in great ideas and having leadership who knows which ones to ignore and which ones to really dive into. So then it's, what's that?
But
wait. So wait, on that?
Did you like that?
Oh, I loved it. No, I thought that was, so story-wise, I actually think, Miles Morales gets his spider powers from getting bit in that awesome scene in the graffiti thing. I love that scene so much with his uncle, and he's Spider-Man. And then there is Spider-Man in his universe who then gets killed. But he's not, there's no verse. So you don't need the verse to explain Miles Morales because he has a Spider-Man. There's the young and the old. So I was watching this movie going it almost felt like they made the movie and went, shit, we didn't need this verse thing, did we? Because the best stuff in that movie is young and old Spider-Man learning the ropes. Together. And you clearly
but Janky Peter Parker comes from a different verse because his Spider-Man is killed.
Totally,
you don't need the Spider-Man in his verse that dies.
Yeah, you don't need the Spider-Man in his verse that dies. And by the way, this is don't confuse what I'm saying for me saying they should have done it like this. I'm just saying,
no, but it's just interesting
that you don't need it.
I just think it's fun. Sorry to interrupt you. I just think it's fun to put janky hobo Spider-Man up to an old, because otherwise we don't have a reference for 40-year-old Spider-Man. So then we got a brief Chris Pine of Spider-Man's perfect.
Like Spider-Man Prime.
Right.
Exactly.
Spider-Man is Prime versus Spider-Man 20 years later.
Probably the one that we would have known or imagined. and then that makes Janky Hobo even more fun.
But this is part of the process of making the film that people talk about. So when you're saying, like, how do they come up with the dots on the skin, it's also, do we need the Spider-Verse? And that's an important conversation to have. So someone said to me, yeah, but the kids wouldn't like it as much if it didn't have Penny Parker. And I'm like, I don't really have a good argument against that. So then you start to go into why they made the decisions they did. See what I mean? Like that's why I like when movies are good, because then there's no argument about whether it's good or bad.
You're just getting into the layers.
Cool.
I don't need the other guys, but Noir, Nicolas Cage for the win. That was
it's funny gimmicks. It's great gimmicks.
Right. Totally, and it's like
but it doesn't carry the story.
It's like saying, would Despicable Me be better without Minions? And you're like, no. But did you need the Minions? No. It's like that kind of a thing. So like my son wouldn't like the movie as much without Minions. But I also think, by the way, if they were working towards this dimensional shift, you could have squeezed in all that other Spider-Man, other dimensional action in that third act fight and had all those gags come out. So it's like, whoa, where'd you come from? Where'd you come from? So you could still kind of have your cake and eat it too if that's what they were working towards, rather than it being this like full schism. Because I feel like they painted themselves. Oh, here's the other thing, and then this is the one thing I didn't like about it. Having them die if they didn't go back was an artificial timer, because I would have loved to see old Spider-Man want to stay and realize why he couldn't. That would have been
that would have been great.
Like he should have said, "I'm staying. I don't have to worry about. I don't have to deal with the guilt of Mary Jane. I can maybe talk this one into not wanting kids. I can, you know what I mean? There's like, he should have been. It should have been a darkness about his character that made him want to stay. Because if he has to go back, it's just a timer. It's literally like they could have just went, oh my God, we have to timer." And then blah, 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 right? You know, like there's no reason for that. They're all going to
artificial stakes.
Artificial stakes. What were we watching last night? Oh, Ghostbusters. My son saw Ghostbusters last night for the first time. And he's like,
it's a huge deal.
I know, it was pretty good. And he's like, why can't they cross the streams? And I was like, stakes. You know, like I knew it was like a word that would keep him quiet for a minute, so everyone could watch the movie. Otherwise, it was gonna be like, well, the idea is blah blah, but it pays off later, and here's why they did. You know, you can't like get into that when everyone's watching a movie. But no, and that's what I mean. Is like that's not a criticism of the movie, but like, had they another 6 months, it would have been nice to have Peter.
But I think it's part of an important conversation when you dig into story, and
So here's the thing. Being conscious of time and the fact that we brought you here to defend, not even defend, but to talk to us about Mission Impossible 6.
Yeah.
Which was your big recommendation last time. I'm going to truncate our Mission Impossible 6 conversation a little bit.
This is going to make me so sad. But fine.
Well, no, but wait, was that a controversial pick? Was Mission Impossible 6 as a
No.
Oh,
we all loved it. It was terrific.
Okay,
Lily
cool.
calls it the best documentary she's seen all year.
Yeah,
all the stunts
are real.
Yeah, the scene on the helicopter was like, this is documentary footage. I agree completely. When he's hanging from the helicopter, I was like, this is just what happened.
I feel like obligatory watching is the special features of this movie, because
the special
I'm like
features
annoyed none of that's on YouTube.
The special features are very much the like Tom Cruise. What's the word I'm looking for? Like very
propaganda.
Yeah,
vanity.
Vanity. But at the same time, you're like, but he really deserves all this credit because he's amazing.
I took a screenshot of the scene when he jumps over the building. I paused the movie, took a screenshot, and sent it to both of you guys, or maybe just to Shai. I don't remember, because maybe you hadn't seen it yet, Beck. And it's the scene he broke his real ankle in that moment.
You know what?
Bends sideways.
They don't take action stars like Tom Cruise anymore. No. I'm just gonna say it. You have The Rock, you have Statham, but no one functions the way that.
Here's the thing about Tom Cruise, though. So there's many things about Tom Cruise, but I want to talk about the whole concept of leadership on a set, because I've heard him be interviewed before about how serious he takes being the top of the call sheet, and how, and in those documentary footage, I mean, in those featurettes, and granted, those are featurettes made about the executive producer to make him look good, but you see him kind of commanding the whole group and working closely with the director. But when I think of Tom Cruise in the early days, I think of this heartthrob character. I don't think of an action star. I feel like he evolved into an action star, maybe even with the first Mission Impossible. Like, it's not like Top Gun was doing action. He was sitting in a chair the whole time.
But I think he said, I'm going to do this.
He clearly became an adrenaline junkie and was like, well, let's turn this into something, worthwhile for everyone else.
Totally.
Yeah, it's impressive.
So,
but
Mike, why was that at the moment that you told us last time was like you were enthralled with that movie? What was the thing that made you enthralled with that movie?
Well, I'd probably just seen it, which helps. It was like very on point, like in the moment. But also, like I remember my friend, this guy named Murray Bain. He runs a studio in Nova Scotia, an animation studio called Copernicus, and he always said to me the problem. And I'll misquote him, but he basically said he wasn't sure about Die Hard because what's the character's name?
John McClane?
John McClane was like too powerful. Like he always could get through it. I'm not sure if maybe I might be misquoting him, but
later Die Hard movies, that is the problem.
Maybe that's
early Die Hard, he's doing much better, but by the time that he's wrestling a Harrier jet, it's stupid.
Right. So I'm probably getting the timing wrong of how he said it, but yes, that's essentially it. So he always planted in my head this notion of like a character has to be fallible or there's no character. So like Indiana Jones shooting the dude with the gun because he doesn't want to get into a sword fight, like that kind of stuff, forgetting his hat. Those are so important to making movies good that I think people forget about. And that is like Tom Cruise in all of those movies after, I think even in the first one, but definitely starting with number 3 and 4, every time he hurts himself, you believe the next stupid thing he does. So there's movies in that, like, there's things that happen in those movies that are...
Because he's really hurt, apparently.
But also, like, you remind the audience that, like, you forgive things if the moment is taken to address it. So he's riding this motorbike around the city, like, this is insane, this is insane, this is insane. If he just drove his motorbike into the, whatever that weird net was that went down into the sewer, you would have been like, okay, now what? But because he fell off the car... Mm-hmm. And jumped into the net, cut the hole, and jumped down. Now it was like he messed it up, but the plan doesn't seem so absurd anymore. Because you start going like, well, where's he driving? If the plan was to get picked up on that thing, why was he driving around for 20 minutes?
Right, like on the helicopter, he falls and smashes into that payload and is like...
Yeah.
Somehow that makes the whole stunt, the whole scene feel a little bit more
He's almost
possible.
Up and almost falls down, and you're like, right. Oh, well, if he can almost fall, then I guess it's real. And which it was, because it was real.
It perfectly like an actual, like, Iron Man kind of...
Yeah, well, and so Mission Impossible 2 has the exact opposite problem.
Oh, it's the worst.
Everything that happens in that movie is choreographed in a way that could never happen, and there isn't, like, one tiny moment where they give you an idea that he could fall down. Mm-hmm. So then there's just no drama. 0, 0, 0. So like, remember that I was watching it because I rewatched Mission Impossible 6 the other day. Remember at the end when he runs into his wife?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great part of that movie.
Yeah, man.
Amazing. That little 2 minutes of it's like, hey, what are you doing here? And he realizes it's all a setup. She's essentially like a singular hostage, yeah. Like it's just this thing where you go like,
well, in the end, he's a good. The thing is that in the end of the day, he's a good actor.
Really good actor.
Like,
I'm a huge Tom Cruise apologist, by the way.
Yeah.
No.
Agreed.
I think, like, give me a break. He's a good actor.
Well,
I think he's a great actor. So you buy it.
Yeah, and like, if he doesn't believe his own bullshit, then how is he a good actor? Like, that's every time he does some crazy. Like, of course he thinks God gave him those powers because, like, what's the difference?
Well, I think for him, it's like an alien.
So he's like beyond method. He's like one step beyond a method actor.
No, I think that really is him in the movie. That's like what he's like in real life.
Ethan Hunt. They melded into one person.
Sure, he just changed the name.
I mean,
like, I feel like
I would say this. If I would say there's one, not that I know who Ethan Hunt was before Tom Cruise played him, but I will say my favorite one in the series is Mission Impossible 1. After Mission Impossible 1, I mean 6 is definitely my second favorite. But after Mission Impossible 1, I feel like, and 2 kind of makes it a problem. I wonder what it would be like to just go back and never see Mission Impossible 2. It really just became Tom Cruise's star vehicle. And Ethan Hunt and Tom Cruise, or Tom Cruise's Ethan Hunt is kind of inseparable the way there's Jason Bourne and Indiana Jones. This just became, or James Bond, only not recastable. And so whereas in the first one I felt like he was playing a little bit more with inside a universe, and then beyond that they're just like, okay, these are just the Mission Impossible universe that Tom Cruise is in, which no complaints. I mean, at this point I've seen more of the Tom Cruise Mission Impossible than I ever saw of the real show. So
Well, but then they don't have to compete with the Kingsman. They don't have to compete with it's more like they. I feel like they put the Mission Impossible movies up against James Bond as like he's American James Bond. That was like the concession,
right?
Because how do you make Mission Impossible 1 again? Like I love Brian De Palma and I love that movie, but he's the victim of that movie. Like he's essentially like he's running backwards the whole time. So there's no moment where, and that's what I thought they did a good compromise in part 3, where they made him the victim of his wife's kidnapping. So it was like they knew that was what made it work, and then they said, you know what, fuck it, let's just make him this like what happens when someone is like crazy enough to run for 5 hours.
But to me, obviously, there's a difference between, let's say, 5 and 6. I forget the other ones. The only one I really remember is the one where somebody is somebody else and they pull their face off. And
that's
that's everyone. It's all of them.
That's exactly my point.
I like the one where he has the suction cups on the outside.
That's number 5. Yeah. Right? That's Brad Bird.
That's great. Brad Bird, right. Okay, right. We saw that one a couple times in theaters, once or twice.
I thought this one was better. And not because, Mike Roberts told me to see it. I just thought I had more fun watching this one. And I don't know if it was, now that you're saying that whole thing about kind of making it a bit more believable, is it that he's matured? Like, is it all Tom Cruise just becoming this person more and more? And I believe him versus character.
I'm going to throw a proposition in there. I feel like it wasn't until this one that they and it based on the featurette, it said Tom Cruise advocated for this, that they didn't truly try to tie together the movies. It felt like they were always, okay, we've got Ethan Hunt, we've got Ving Rhames, and then we'll just put an adventure around it. But like we hadn't seen his wife really in a couple of movies, and this time I felt like they made an effort to actually make this part of a series as opposed to individual installments that were unrelated.
They were like, great villain, check. Good action.
Yeah,
check.
but they were cashing in on the work they'd done too. It's why Infinity War is maybe not the best Marvel movie, but it's one of the most satisfying ones.
It's the only one I found actually interesting the whole way through.
Infinity War.
Because
it was such a payoff to a thing that had been happening. It's like why you like the Harry Potter books more as they go, or me.
True.
But that's the thing is I agree completely, because Mission Impossible 6, like I liked 5. 5 was the one where they were in that underwater thing, and
that's all I remember is the underwater and
I remember the giant building.
Is that also the Brad Bird one?
No,
that's the same director as 6.
So I watched. I think Chris McQuarrie, he's awesome. I really like it. What were you saying?
Yeah, he only wrote a little thing like Usual Suspects and then directed these movies. God, so talented.
He's well up and coming. Blah blah blah. It's like Shane Black's Iron Man's my favorite one. Well, it's not my favorite, but I really like it. And it's like, just Shane Black, just him. It's like that.
Kiss Kiss Bang Bang with Iron Man.
It's funny when I say this, because like I always think like the path to being a good director is you're a director or you're a really good writer, because you rarely see people who aren't obsessed with story become good directors. And Chris McQuarrie is someone who can like clearly set up stakes, make them happen. Set up stakes, make them happen. Set up stakes, make them happen. Like I love Jennifer. Well, and like, Henry Cavill is such a red herring. Like, he's the bad guy from the minute he shows up. There is no surprise there whatsoever. But the way they unfolded, I thought was really interesting and
it's really fun.
Do you think Cavill knew what he was signing up for when he said he'd be in this movie? Like, do you think he really understood he'd have to stand on that, like, terrifying rock cliff in, like, high winds having a real fight scene?
I have to say, until you watch the featurette, you don't really believe that they're there. You're like, it's a gimmick. And then I saw the thing and I was like, what? I would 100% lose my job. They have to hire me.
But that's what makes the movie good, because, like you're saying, like, you feel like you're like, I know he lives, but I know he almost didn't, is like a really interesting sort of story to tell. It's like and no one goes to NASCAR because they're like, oh, I sure hope to get around the circle. They're like, someone died here once. That's what NASCAR is, So like, how do you reconcile the feeling you have in a movie where you know it's fake, but you want it to be real, because everybody wants it to be real. Because one of my biggest problems with my only real problem with Black Panther was that the CG effects were very CG at points.
Yeah.
That's what I said. I said the special effects were like,
you did say that, Lil. It's like, great, more special effects.
Because I will say, like, I love the first Avengers movie, literally until they say, let's fight these aliens in New York. And then the last half hour is like, fine, have your fight. you're already friends. The movie's over. You know, like that's like
You're
because
already
like
the Avengers. Came
yeah,
to
like you're the
got
Avengers
what I paid.
now. The movie's over. That's one of my big things. Like I will say, like I saw Django Unchained the first time in the theater, and there was a fire alarm halfway through, and I loved it. And then the fire alarm went off, and then I never saw Candy shoot or whatever Christoph Waltz shoot Candy until I rented it, and that's such a huge character break that like the last like I love Quentin Tarantino, I love Django Unchained, but the last 30 minutes of that movie doesn't matter to me because Christoph Waltz shot Candy, and it was a huge character break just so that you could play chess and have Django have his revenge, which he needs. But you can't break a character out of the thing you've spent 2 hours setting up just so that the hero.
I thought that. So I loved that movie. I agree. To me, the last sort of sequence is just like it's coming. They did the same thing at the end of Inglourious Bastards, but to me, I mostly was sad in that scene with Christoph Waltz shooting Candy because that was one of the most amazing characters, and I was so sad that he wasn't going to be in the last third of the movie. But I actually thought that they sold it in the sense that he broke. He snapped in that moment.
But it wasn't his thing. Like Django had to essentially like compel him to play along, and then he learns his name, and he's like, oh, and he relates because of this fairy tale. Like I thought they went so out of their way to make a morally ambiguous character relate to a slave.
Interesting.
To then have him get so upset, and I would have much rather had Django do the arm thing with the hidden gun, and Christoph Waltz goes, no, I'm going to make it my life's work to fuck this guy up. But we got to get out of here first. We will go into the woods. We will get all the guns we need, and we will come back. Then kill Christoph Waltz. It just was a character break to have him lose his shit. It's not how he works.
I'm loving the Mike Roberts secret rewriting of movies.
Love it. Yeah,
you should. We're onto something here.
So okay,
like fan fiction, but better.
All right. So with that, Mike, if you could, to wrap up our Mission Impossible 6 conversation, rank your Mission Impossible movies.
Okay, I have to say the first one because I'm Brian De Palma. It's sort of like, I'm a fan of that and the movie. The first one is like, I felt like they got it really right. Then it's 6. Then it's 4, and I would say because of the Burj Khalifa, the climbing thing, like I don't think anything comes quite to that. And 3, and then 5, and then 2 doesn't
count.
It honestly, I mean, I'm not to say like that movie is, and I hate talking like this, and I'm a huge oh my god, the director is
John Woo.
John Woo. I love the Killer, blah blah, all those. I love his Hong Kong movies. It doesn't. I can't watch it. I actually can't watch it, and that's like saying a lot. But I don't think that's his fault. But I will say, have you noticed? And this maybe is a funny animator question, Becky. I'll say it to you specifically. Mission Impossible 4 is very cartoony. Very, very, very cartoony. Do you remember that opening sequence with the guy from Alias, and he like comes in the parachute, and he's like, he's cool, and he does his thing, and then he walks up to the girl in the alleyway, and he looks at his phone, and he looks at her, and she shoots him, and then he falls down dead, and his phone like rolls away, and it says assassin.
Yeah. It's almost like Inspector Gadget. Like
yeah. I was like, oh, really? That's how they give you these super briefs? Like 2 seconds before they see her, it says assassin on your phone. Like, any more information? Well, like, what if it was like pet assassin? Like what kind of assassin? So, like, clearly that information was there for the audience, but there's got to be a better way than literally writing the word assassin.
I have never looked at a fridge opening scene the same since Mike told us last time that having someone look at you through the fridge.
No, I found the perfect example where it works. My son's been watching Pee-wee's Playhouse all the time. Pee-wee goes in the fridge and the produce is alive, and then they cut around and it's their POV.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, that's cool. Okay, let's cut to our recommendations, things we've been watching, and I'll say a couple of things I've been watching. Future Man on Hulu is super. It's awesome. I'm loving the new Goldberg spinoff, Schooled. Terrific. Like, awesome out of the box, so it can only go up from here. And then I watched, as homework from Mr. Roberts last time, I watched Parallax View, The
Oh,
Parallax View, starring Warren Beatty, and Mr. Feeney from Boy Meets World is in it. And I really didn't have expectations going into it, but it's definitely one of those 3 Days of the Condor. I think it's actually by the same director. 3 Days of the Condor. Is it? No, maybe not 3 Days of the Condor. Maybe it's All the President's Men. But it's definitely.
All the President's Men is like the companion one.
Yeah, okay, but it reminds me of 3 Days of the Condor. Those movies, those kind of conspiracy movies that, or this great movie Arlington Road with Jeff Bridges and Tim Robbins.
Hate that movie.
But it's very similar in that it's a conspiracy and you're following the good guy all the way through, and then you realize this movie's kind of in a loop and not a good loop.
But it is the same director's All the President's Men.
But what I loved about it, Mike, was I thought the use of audio in that movie was really strange. Maybe because it was the 70s, but there's like this scene where they're in a dam and they're trying to drown a particular character, and the sound of the dam is just overpowering. It was like just striking. And then the other thing I'll say about it that I loved about it was just, wow, young Warren Beatty. I got to watch more young Warren Beatty. He's the man.
He looks like how they drew Superman, like all through the 60s and 70s. Like when you see him show up that first time, he's like standing behind the like thing. You're like, whoa, like I know like Dick Tracy Warren Beatty. I didn't know like Superman Warren Beatty.
Yeah, I know him as like the kind of like whatchamacallit, baby carriage stealer. What do you call it? The married Annette Bening, who's like 30 years old.
Yeah.
Cradle robber, baby carriage stealer.
No, it's
baby. You're clearly you look cold and your head is fuzzy.
There's a scene in that movie where he's trying to convince the like agent from the CIA that he's crazy, and he burns his hand on the pot and then like flips out and throws it across the room. It's like that is like and they shoot it all like you're in the hallway. That movie's great.
Yeah, that was a cool movie. I'm really glad that I got a chance to see something old and classic, because the 70s is an era that I don't often go to rewatch something that I haven't seen, because the look is not really my thing. I don't enjoy it as much, but that was a really cool one.
Have you seen The Conversation, the Francis Ford Coppola with Gene Hackman?
Oh, I got to see that.
That's a really good movie. That one's even more paranoid.
Oh, that's possible. Cool. Yeah. I got to see that. Okay. That's awesome. Cool. All right, Lily, what about you? What have you been watching?
I think I'm the only one that watches a show ever in the whole world. Friends from College.
I watched half an episode of the exact kind kind of mid-30s misery that I can't.
Yes, agreed. 100% agree with Shai. It's
everybody hates it. Everybody says it's unwatchable. Everybody says that these are terrible people. There's not a single redeemable character on the show. I can't stop. And all in on season 2. Season 2 is awesome.
Allie loves it. She watches it. This is a show Allie likes.
The show, I can't tell. It's a weird thing between me watching it and being like, I hate all these people. This show makes me feel really good about my life. And me being like, what does this say about me that I like this show? So I go between those two, and I'm a bit worried.
The second part.
But the second season is just, I had moments where like I was watching it like quietly. I'm trying to get my kid to go to sleep who's jet lagged, and like woke him up because I was laughing out loud. That doesn't happen often to me. So there's some pretty funny moments in season 2. And I watched Bad Times at the El Royale. Mike, you should see that movie.
Yeah, I'm worried about that one because it makes me nervous from it's got a lot of style. There's a lot of things happening.
It's very Tarantino-esque, but it's fun.
Okay.
It's like a movie. It's like a movie that would have come out in the 90s during the Tarantino craze, but not made by Tarantino.
All right. I love Guy Ritchie and stuff. I like the kind of.
Is that a Guy Ritchie movie?
No. I just mean I like what Tarantino inspired in the 90s.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the thing is that the actors are great. Very stylized, but the actors are great. And
I'll check it out.
It's just like a fun movie. It's definitely an renter. I'm not saying
all right.
buy it, but like it's I enjoyed watching it.
Whereas Mission Impossible 6 is buy and get the HD version with the special features.
No, you have.
I've watched it 3 times already. I bought it.
Yeah.
So you can get the special features because those are better than the movie. Sorry, it's just true.
I bet.
So yeah, that's it. That's all I got for you.
Becky, how about you?
Just finished Future Man season 1 last night. I'm very excited. Fully endorse that show. gotta go watch it. If you don't like it, I get it. I just, I think people who do like it are probably have a great sense of humor and, a thorough understanding of pop culture.
That is a show to tie it back to something like Final Space, where they do this kind of funny sci-fi, but that has stakes, and especially when you get into the second season. Second season is funny, but it's a little more serious. It's a little more artistic, a little weirder. But I believe I heard Seth Rogen talking about it, how he wanted to do a comedy, but that had real end of the world stakes, and I think they finally kind of got it, and what they set up for season 3, I really hope they do, because season 3 will be amazing.
I will say it has one of probably the most important thing to this family when it comes to content, character development. It's got great character, and in the last episode of season 1, they really they give a little bit of exposition about the character development, but they have like some self-reflective moments where the characters are like, wow, I've really changed. And anyway, so that I've also been binging Catastrophe because it's so easy to watch. I know I'm super late to the game on that one, and the only thing I'm going to say about that is the main character Sharon a good person? I don't think so.
Not really, but it's kind of irrelevant. She's really funny.
Did you finish season 3 yet?
No.
Season 3 ends in an important place for her character.
I just started it.
Because if you're watching that show, a lot of the time,
I also
think Rob Delaney's character is the most wonderful guy, and you're like, why is he with
Not really. They're both kind of terrible
But I think that it's like permissible when the character just is generally a good person, but just says all the things that maybe like we all think, and she doesn't give a shit, and she's happy with like herself.
Wait, what show is this?
Catastrophe. It's on
really
Prime.
good.
Amazon
it's
Prime.
Very bingeable. Like you can just
it's like a half hour, like 25, 26 minutes, and I feel like it's a good I feel like a show that you can watch with like a partner, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever.
It's a definition of dramedy.
Yes.
Yeah. And
that's it.
And it's about child rearing.
That's what's been.
So
that's all I've been watching.
And Mike, you got anything that you're watching that you or anything you want people to watch?
I feel like I've been working. Like I have two kinds of watching: when I watch stuff and when I'm working. And when I'm working, I'm always watching stuff, but I can't recommend anything because I'm not technically watching it. But the last thing I watched that I liked was the premiere of Star Trek season 2 of Discovery season 2.
Cool. I've been thinking about starting that show. Is it good?
So, okay, the first season is like a mixture of really good and kind of terrible in places. So, like
really
when you hit. No, but like, so there's like I almost feel like you just skip it all, go right to the Harry Mudd episode with oh my God, I forget his name.
That British guy who's cute.
No. Wait.
Oh no.
Hold on, Harry. I'm gonna do. I can't not say his name because he's too.
Mudd, Matthew McConaughey.
No.
Harry.
Wait, why isn't it coming up? Why isn't it coming
Doug
up?
Jones.
No.
Anthony Rapp. Jason Isaac.
It is Rain. Is it? Wait, why am I? I'm wrecking the show. I'm wrecking the show. Hold on, give me 2 seconds here.
Sometimes shows need like a season or two to really find their voice.
I'm reading off main characters, and you're not buying any of these, so I don't know if we're talking about the same show.
Sometimes shows need like a season or two to find their voice, and then by season 2 or season 3, they're really great. Like a Parks and Rec situation. So I get that like maybe season 1's hit or miss, but overall enjoyable. And
like they do a lot of stuff that is really bad in like they change the canon of Star Trek in a way that like is very frustrating in the first season. And then it's Rainn Wilson. Okay, so he plays Harry Mudd, and he's this kind of malevolent character from the original series. Malevolent? Oh my God, words are important. Okay,
he's very low on the IMDb cast, though.
I know, it's funny, right?
It's like hard to find him.
So season 1, I feel like if you're feeling like you're not liking it, you can skip it over. But I think that then watching the first season of season 2, I was actually really glad I was invested in the characters. If that makes any sense.
All right.
So then the premiere of season 2, I thought was great. Like it has Anson Mount is playing Captain Pike he's from Hell on Wheels, which is another one of my favorite shows of all time. And you guys did you ever see Hell on Wheels on AMC?
No.
Oh man, it also has Cole Meany in it, which is one of my favorite actors of all time. But anyway,
Dad loves Cole Meany.
Yeah,
he's the best. So anyway, so season 2 of Star Trek to me seems like a apology for season 1 because it has what's good about season 1 and almost nothing about what's bad about season 1. That was very like heartfelt. Tig Notaro's in the premiere.
I know.
Awesome.
Notice that.
Wow.
I love a good Tig Notaro sprinkling in.
She's the ultimate deadpan. Funny deadpan. I don't know what you call that.
One of the greatest pop culture experiences of my life was at the Benson Ball, which is a comedy festival here in DC, which she's kind of the curator of. I got to see her live moderate Weird Al Yankovic and Emo Phillips watching UHF live for an audience.
God, that sounds amazing.
It
I love
was
UHF.
incredible. It was incredible. She was so funny. She was such a gracious host too. She like ran all the way up into the balcony to take questions from the audience. It was so good.
Yeah, like she's one of those people where it's like she's not a good actor, but I would watch her act all day. If that makes any sense. I don't know who else fits in that category. But it was
also,
anyway.
I think you just recommended our new favorite show, Hell on Wheels. I never heard of this. This looks amazing.
All right.
It's like early days of the railroad. It's sort of like Deadwood, but if Deadwood was making the railway.
It's
cool.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'm going to wrap the show here and ask folks to do their social media, and then we can chit-chat afterwards if Mike has time, but I know that folks got
I'm under the gun.
Got to run. So,
unfortunately.
Mike, where can people follow you, even though we all follow you and we know where?
I have this Instagram and Twitter is the Mike Roberts, and my website is michaeljohnroberts.com. That's probably all that matters.
And your Instagram is amazing. So
yeah, it's the same. It's the Mike Roberts.
Yeah.
That's unnecessarily important having the in there. But
Lil, where can people follow you?
At Chichi K Gomez on Twitter. I tweet now. And at Friday Night Movie Pod, because one of the funnest things that's happened to me in my life.
At Friday Night Movie.
Whatever. They can. If you've gotten this far and you can't find our Instagram, you got problems. Number one. Number two. One of the most fun things of my adulthood has been sharing an Instagram account with the two of you. So I often like our own stuff by accident.
But I
like our own stuff all the time because I never remember to post to it, and then one of you guys do. I'm like, look how much fun this is, and so I have to include myself more.
And Becky, where can people follow you?
At PaperBKPrincess on Twitter, and I will perhaps begin to post to our at Friday Night Movie IG account.
I hope so. And you before going into my stuff, I want to thank our amazing guest, Mike Roberts. Tremendous artist, so much fun to talk to. For joining us. Hopefully you'll come back.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, you guys are hilarious.
Thank you.
It's the best. It's like going to film school and then getting to hang out with the teacher after.
That's a good way of putting it.
That's the problem.
Totally like it. And so you can follow me at Pancake4Table on Instagram and Twitter, and you can follow all of our stuff at FridayNightMoviePod.com. This is the perfect episode to remind folks that we will be exhibiting at the All-Star Comic-Con in June 7th, 8th, and 9th in Tyson's Quarter, Virginia. And we've been talking to Mike and Kevin, hopefully planning some podcast crossovering with their podcast soon. And we're really psyched. We're going to make Coming to Urban a real experience for people. And with that, the music from What Does It Eat will kick in, and we will dance our way into the afternoon. We got to dance now where we're watching you dance.
I like dancing to
Lily's
someone who can't see you dance. Like the dance is totally unnecessary. I can tell everybody.
But people knowing that you did it is, I think.
Okay.
You just do a head bob.